Hello, how are you doing? Thank you very much for participating in this next session. Here we have a great panel about the creative carousel. My name is Camilo Roberti. I am the director of brand strategy at El Palacio de Hierro. And before starting, I would like to tell you that it's very important, this panel, and we have a lot of things to talk about. As a marketer, as a marketers, it's important to understand creativity as the secret ingredient of good communication, or instead of trying to understand algorithms, creatives are the magicians enticing or eating the mandate of all of those robots and data engineers. We have very important questions to start this advertising week afternoon. And in order to answer those questions, we have a great panel of MVPs from the creative industry. And I would like to introduce them so you understand about the angle that they are coming from. First of all, we have Renato Ibarra. Thank you very much, Renato, for being here with us. He is a global co-leader of integrated production at Procter& Gamble. He worked since 1996 with Procter& Gamble and since 2001 as the famous Cincinnati headquarters. He is responsible for the creation of campaign for the hair care, and he was part of the campaigns of Old Spice, one of my favorite ones. If you don't know them, please watch them in YouTube. Not right now, after this session, of course. And he's in charge of training brand managers of Procter& Gamble in the production of publicity on advertising to maximize quality and the commercial impact of this work. For sure, he's going to have a very interesting approach. Renato, he's a Mexican that went to the US, and here we have an American coming to Mexico, Shawn. Yes, of course, to bring the bacon home. So he was the creative in Los Angeles, and he comes here as a strategic planning director of GDT, where he worked with customers like Nestle and Diageo. He has worked as the communication director in Pro Natura. He has been the VP of strategic planning in Eric Group Mexico and Teran Mexico. Now he is the head of strategy of OMD Mexico. Thank you very much for being here with us, Shawn. And finally, to my left, we have Jose Alberto Teran. He has been the director. Well, I don't need to introduce him, but for you, the interns that you are here, Jose Alberto Teran, he has been the general director of Teran since 1998. In 1995, Teran starts working in Omnicom Group. He's the global network of TADA, so it's like they are cousin, although they don't look the same. Jose has been a huge promoter of the industry, the president of the AMAP 3 times, and the founder of FE Mexico in 2000. Before starting, I have to declare a conflict of interest. Teran has been the creative agency of El Palacio de Hierro during the last 70 years. I think that the Palacio de Hierro was the first customer of Teran. Jose Alberto didn't work in the group at that moment, of course. So we have a great group of panelists and a lot of questions that I would like to ask them. And I would like to start speaking in a generally way. Is it true that algorithms and engineers just took the advertising industry? Right now we see the advertising week and data and artificial intelligence and what Facebook may do for us and Google. So what's the current status of the creative industry? Jose? Well, we need to take into account an interesting thing that we are experiencing, and that is that there is a book, a very nice book, that is called The Attention Economy. We can see the attention economy that is very difficult to grasp people's attention. And this is a book that was published by Harvard Business Press, and they have this concept that attention is a currency that you have to earn as a brand. So during all day we are working and interested in things, and to grasp people's attention is very complicated. I do this because sometimes we call them consumers, but we don't even know that if they want to consume. I would like to think about the fact that they are, first of all, people, then an audience, probably to the messages that we have. So with this level of attention, we have to be relevant, and we need to be appropriate in order to grasp the attention. And we're talking about the Netflix generation, where we are conditioned to see things in a different way. What we are interested about are the TV shows, the content that is designed with a purpose, and that you can watch them as in episodes. So more than talking about algorithms and all of those horrible words that you mentioned, I think that the important thing is to understand the people's culture, what are they interested about, and to give them a product that want to see and not that they need to see. Because right now we are coming from an era where we have captivate them, and right now it's not the case. We have to create a content that people really want to do, and that's why we really need a different mindset, different approach and a process. But first of all, we need a good idea. So coming back to your original question, so for me, right now creativity is more important than ever, more important than ever. So Renato, what's your perspective on the PNG, where you are masters on marketing? For sure you have a lot of resources to do marketing, great marketing. So what's your perspective from the point of view of the production of advertising at GMB? Well, of course, that with all of the different messages that we need to convey to the consumer, production is very important, and the efficient production is even more important. But if I go back to think and to talk about what you are mentioning, Jose, is that creativity is very, very important for sure. And as Procter, as we were the pioneers, Procter always at the head of the things, wanting to reach at the first place. Well, we faced this content explosion, and then we noticed that we were producing certain good things, but as well very horrible things, garbage. As our CMO Mark Richards says, we were producing crap instead of craft. So we start, Mac Preacher just recommended just to start thinking about our purpose for being here. If we want to create content or rescue the values of the crafting, that is very important, and they are related with a very good idea. Not exactly with a very good idea, but as well joined to a very good production. Because there's a creativity fest in England, the British Arrows. Probably you know them. These British Arrows had 2 shows in a year. One that was specific for creativity. They had all the creativity award, and the other show was about the production. And this year, the CEO of British Arrows, they wanted to make a change that for me was very important. And that change is that a good idea, a good crafting is the combination of a very good idea and the excellence on the production. So he joined the shows. Right now we have one show, British Arrows, having these 2 things. So this is very important, not to split the idea with the creativity. Creativity is more relevant today more than ever. Shawn. So Jose talks about the importance of the content, and Renato about the production, and they go along. So, an strategist of OMD, what's your approach related to the importance of creation and creativity? So you are using this idea of robo versus creative, because what's the meaning for agencies, or if you work as creative data people or digital? Data is moving right now because digital was a revolution. Digital is sending data, and right now we can work with data. Data is giving us the complete funnel. And today we don't need to spots upper funnel. We could work funnel coming from our consideration and purchase intent, and to have messages. That's why we have a demand for having more creativity. So what I was thinking before when we were talking for the industry, I'm coming from a creative agency. I'm a creative, but I haven't enjoyed myself as much as when working in an agency, having access of data. So this is challenge you. I think that if we want to go to a future where automation of these data is going to be done, it's going to become an obsolete agency. The media agency could win in a short term, but having an algorithm for humor or non-secretive thinking, or like having like for a shot, a creative shot, I mean, there's no way of doing it. Creativity in a long term, yes, it may be. And yes, in fact, I've heard people saying that there's going to be an algorithm in just to touch people and to make people laugh, but I'm doubt it, because this is a little bit mysterious on this side of creativity, that even I mean, the creatives, they don't know sometimes why they have certain ideas. So creativity is not a science, no, it's an art. Yes, I mean, I believe you, I believe you. The thing is that I have certain budgets to spend, so we have to continue betting for the creatives. But now that I'm looking at the Palacio, the Hierro campaigns, that those campaigns on television are just these very long productions where the creative had a canvas, a great canvas, just to convey his imagination. So that time of Mad Men where creatives had time and resources to do a great thing, probably they don't exist anymore. So how can you apply your creativity in this such a complex environment when a lot of things are changing? I think that the opportunity that we have from data, I mean, data is an opportunity that could create a more powerful creativity, which is more focused. I think that we need to arrange the data and to know where to look for it. And going back to this topic of attention, I think that today we compete against the culture, what it's outside, but at the same time, the culture gives us the opportunity to connect, because if we understand our audience about their interests, their cultural interests, in order to create a content that may connect with them, and because of the dynamics of the way in which we see media, we cannot create a 30-second content that it's going to be streamed during 6 months, because they lose interest. It's like the chapter of a TV show that you saw. It's like when you start looking at different things. So now we need to create a content, a cultural content to connect with that audience, and from my point of view, to have this type of format of episodes, so people could connect with something and to continue watching it. So instead of having a big canvas, as you mentioned before, well, let's have a possibility to produce fresher content more frequently, and to learn from HBO or from Netflix that they are very good for using data. All of the things that Netflix is designing or what HBO is designing, those type of producer, is already tested. It comes from an inside, and those are TV shows that are broadcasted because they have an audience. Exactly, they know where the demand is coming from. So we have to learn from them because they are very good to captivate the audiences. So I think that is a very cool thing that today we are able to produce more. Renato, he's very happy for that. And somebody said in the morning in a panel that we have this obsession for producing a lot of things and to start working with the brand all the time. And yes, I think that the reflection that this person did this morning is that we need to see when and how to be, is what you talk about, the crap and the craft. And I think that's a very good reflection, because yes, if we have to create this content more frequently so people use it, but we need to think when and how, and to have a quality. So Jose, when you talk about the idea that I think that implication for the creative production, I mean, I was talking about that there are certain creatives that they use their notebook in their office, and they work on them until they have their campaign, and then they feel like very bad. But it's not the case anymore. There are a lot of creatives coming from Teran or from the industry, and that they work with us. But that's a different mindset, a more collaborative aspect, and they really like popular culture or small communities or people's habits, and they work with our partners, the media partners, that having certain characteristics that are the houses of people. So that's starting working with intellectual properties, fiction, talents. The people trust on those things, and they look for those people in order to reveal certain meaning of life. Yes, if we could work with them, it's when I saw that creatives could work with Walking Dead to work with the Maxima from Nissan, and then if we could have Bluetooth and if zombies. I mean, it was very interesting because it's not the fact that I'm gonna be having the insight in my notebook and then the presentation. I mean, that's old. That doesn't work anymore. That's legal time, and right now we are in the era where if you have an idea, there's a lot of people having the same idea at the same time because you watch the same video. So it's a different way of working, which is very funny. It is so fun to do that because, as well, of course, there are certain difficulties in collaboration. And I would like to talk about what Jose mentioned. So formats are shorter, probably canvas are smaller. So the challenge is to join that type of communication, because if we only worked in the second point, where to be, how to be less storytelling. So Renato, what's your perspective from Procter and Gamble? Well, I hope my friends from Procter and Gamble think the same thing, that the 30-second ad is dead. It's not dead. We have been predicting the death of the 30-second ad, television ad, for a lot of years, and I think that it's not the case. It has its place. There's a choice, and you have to create the canvas where you want to educate your consumer, to talk about the culture of your brand, of selling the benefit. And right now you have certain tools to do it. So in Procter, we still create this television ad, and in fact we were moving towards the fast things and social media, but we have been going back because we know that stories can be told better in a media that is designed for that, and not exactly some of the digital media were designed to tell stories. Of course, we need to adapt, and we need to have it like, if in your sphere, in your context, you have the need of doing something where the digital media helps. Of course, it depends on the brand and what you want to communicate. So mass media are shared media, and there is a feeling that when I'm looking at this spot, there are people looking at this spot. It's the same thing as at home, and in countries like Mexico, that's an experience for marketers related to drinks, cars, clothes. This is something related to the fact that I'm placing my brand in a group of people. So you've never had both things. When you have a brief and a big idea that we manage together with the creative agency, is not that you are going to watch the spot. Immediately we start creating the ecosystem where we better place this story, because people want to know more, and it's not a dead end, and there's no other place where you can see more content or a blog. So you are not really increasing this return on advertisement spending. Yes, I agree with Renato. There are moments where a brand must have a large statement, and there is a moment for doing it. So what you do for mothers, for example, related to the Olympic Games, it's amazing, and that's a production. I don't know, 2 or 3 minute production that it's incredible, and it has a place, a moment, and it's pertinent. It's not that everything it's moving towards that side. The thing is that it may be a 30-second spot or a 60-second spot, or a TV show is something that people would really like to see, because now we're not captivating them anymore. So a challenge for today's marketer is that we need to produce all of this content, and probably if you want to do something on spot of 30 seconds, and then you don't have enough money, so you have to organize within your budget. If we think in the traditional way of producing it, it's very linear. You have a storyboard that is approved, then they assign a producer, and this producer starts working with the budget, the location, and how to do it. But today, if we have this problem of cost and quality, if we ask our producers, like, how can we do in order to spend less, because we need to produce a lot of content and we don't have money, and they say, well, you have to involve us from the beginning, and we tell to our agencies, you have to involve the producer from the beginning. But how can I do it if my idea is not approved? So this dilemma of the egg and the chicken, that you don't know how to face it, but we have been collaborating a lot with the agencies to know how can we have this creative canvas about the elements of this creative canvas, and to involve the producer just to know how to do it in a very efficient way. So this has caused a very important change, because it's enough. Then we could plan, we can allocate the budget with the production expert, and then we can do the things that we want. I mean, I wouldn't like to talk about this in a lot of detail, but traditionally, when you want to create a television ad, what's the cost of it? Like 100 pesos. And then a Facebook ad, well, 5 pesos. And the budgeting is a historical budgeting, and that's what you paid for the last year, and then work with it as whatever you want. If you can involve your advertising agency, start telling them, this is the money that I have for this campaign, let's work together, so we can see that if your idea is going to be in television, we're going to place this idea. If your great idea is in Facebook because it's important to you, we're going to allocate that money. Probably the television ad is very simple, so that collaboration during the planning stage with production, it's very important. There are countries where the share of watcher has dropped a lot, like in Holland. People don't watch TV anymore, so we have to create content because, for example, yes, I mean, sorry, but this session is sponsored by television. No, I'm sorry, I'm kidding. So then you have to create a certain type of content. I mean, that's the spectrum. You cannot create the 3 million the television ad that is directed by certain people, or just to create the content production platform. I mean, for me, there are two things. Well, a lot of things that we need to learn. But one is the obsession for perfection. When you have a 3 million television ad, you want it to be perfect. But when there's a content that is going to be only for 1 week, although it's not perfect, you have to make it creative, interesting, entertaining, and just to grasp attention. Probably production, it's not perfect, but it wasn't so expensive, and then if it's not going to work, then you're gonna take it out. It's the same thing what happens in the TV shows with Netflix. And the other thing is the mindset of the people that we work with. We need to learn to do more things. We have to have a mindset like of a Hollywood producer, not like the mindset of all of the things, of all of them, but you have to do things. Like we need people having a specialty, but to have a lot of interest and capabilities, different capabilities. So today, a creative director should be able of directing these television ads. So in a certain moment, it would have to happen. I think that this is the other way around. So our worst enemy in industry are our own structures and processes and the job descriptions and workflows and the scope of work. There are things that they are not related, just to get things done. Like this idea of data and the ability, because what happens with data is that it's going to have a user-friendly ability to have production and to make faster decisions. Probably, let's hope, just let's expect to arrive to the marketing in the industries, because we're not changing as fast as we should be doing. We are concerned about pre-production meetings, and that's relevant. Like how he did it, like just to do certain things just because he wanted. And he sent his car saying, like, just don't panic. And there's a saying optimism, pessimism, fuck it, just get it done. So, I mean, really, really, then we start keep on thinking that, well, I haven't done this, and we talk about this, that it's so slow, there is no agility in what we're doing. You're blaming your agency, then I'm gonna blame the customer. And they say it takes two to tangle, right? As a marketer, I'm just taking this idea that makes me feel calm, that everything is possible for a longer television ad, an image campaign. But before such a challenging and complex ecosystem, we have to be very clear in our ideas from the beginning. You, Shawn, you have been planning director for a lot of years, so the value of the initial insight is more important than ever. So as a marketer, when I go to Teran, what are the things that I should know before wanting a campaign? So if there is no media strategy and communication strategy, the important thing is what we want to convey and when. There is one idea to the campaign, and we have to agree with the creative agency. And what about the initial insight? Do you think that they are more important than ever, or what's your opinion about that? So we talked about creative ideas, storytelling. There are universal truths behind that. That's what grasped our attention at the end. It's things like you cannot stop watching, so you need to identify that. So an insight is not a strategy, it's only the relevance of the consumer. But what about your brand? Why are you doing it? Like, your competition may do the same thing, or you are making a difference within the market. So if there are certain components, just to arrange the strategic idea that it's a field. But yes, we would like to highlight that the core idea is an idea having certain consequences on the things that we are going to say and when. And Jose, you talked about the idea of a cultural intervention, is to start dealing with a culture to understand it. And it shouldn't be so large, like, hey, you have to look at your mother in a different way after the Olympics. It could be an intervention in habits, or the people or a small community. I think that the future is when creatives are going to be really making a shift, a mindset shift. And I don't know why the influencers were in social media. They should be in a hacker, in an agency, working for the brands that it's managing the movement. Yeah, that's a complete different topic. Are you going to offer hackers? No, I would like to come back to your question of the strategy. I think that a very important thing is that the brand gives you clarity of their purpose. The purpose for that brand to exist. And I think that from that we're going to be having the clarity, and not all of the brands have clarity, so it's going to be easier to connect it with the cultural trends. Sometimes the brand don't even know their purpose, and that is going to be a very complex situation. So the main question that as a marketer I would ask is, what's the superior purpose of my brand? Beyond I want to be the market leader, or I want to increase my revenues, is like, what's the purpose for me being in this world? And this comes from the clarity and the inspiration that all of the team around the brand may have in order to forecast it and to connect it in a better way. As we said in the beginning, PG has a very important powerhouse, having brands having a reason to exist. Of what you did in the Super Bowl, what Tide did for the Super Bowl was very relevant for me, because then you can see the clarity of their purpose of being there. There is no mistake. And that's super simple. Or are we still talking about shiny hair? It shouldn't have to be so complicated. Shiny hair says a lot. This is related with the vitality of the people. My proposal: I hate shampoo television ads. Well, We don't have enough time, and before finishing, I would like to talk about something that has happened in the last year. Before, the ecosystem was very clear, or of the things that each agency did, and right now we have new players, digital marketing. Now even the consultants are doing marketing. Even PricewaterhouseCooper want to sell brand strategies. There is an integration and joining all of these integrated services. So, what's the landscape? How do you see the landscape of the creative agencies in the future? A marketer, how can be included in all of these services? Well, first of all of this is caused by data, because Pricewaterhouse or Deloitte, they work with data, and they have certain relations with segments. They work with the CFO, CMO, CTO, a certain type of Z. So we work even more with the CMO, but data has created this conversion. So, from my point of view, agencies, if we are not investing in the data, we are crazy. Because typically, an agency invests the 40% of its budget in the creative aspect, 12% in strategies, very broadly speaking, and now even zero in data. Now we are investing in data, and a lot of agencies are doing it because that's the currency that are going to allow you to be in the conversation. Otherwise, you won't know what you're doing because they come from the data. So I think that that's going to be the currency that is going to increase it. And what we've seen, that there are a lot of agencies that would like to give everything, and that causes complexity. And we just addressing or probably looking at our agencies as providers instead of partners. And for me, that's a very important aspect, because your agency, it doesn't matter the type of agency, is your partner, then you have the same objective, you have the same goals, and then you may achieve great things. There's nothing like partnership, and trying an agency like a provider, just dealing more with money instead with objectives, then you could do greater things. Very good. Do we have time for questions? Yes, yes, we do. Perfect. Do you have any question? Do we have microphones there? Well, I'm very interested about integration and how Procter and Gamble address that when you are creating all of this content. When you were talking about deodorants, what are the challenges, the specific challenges when you need to develop so much? Well, the challenge is not to develop that much. We really need to be clear on what you want to develop, and having a very clear idea, as Jose said, the idea, your strategy, and what's your representation as a brand. How would you like to communicate, and to focus only on that. And of course, the production. In the part of the production is a complex thing, but with a planning, with a proper planning, you may achieve that. Not all the time. Sometimes it's a problem, and sometimes we fail for sure. But the most important thing for me in this multiple vehicles aspect is not wanting to grasp everything that is shiny, because a lot of people is very excited of what RBR or all the R's, VR, AR, all of the different type of R's, and then we just we start losing our focus on what you want to give the consumers. We have another question here in the front. My question is, you've talked about data a lot, and data may seem to be the absolute truth, which is a mistake, because having the knowledge is not having the understanding. So in which way can we generate this understanding through numbers? I agree that they set a trend, but when your mom says do whatever you want, it doesn't mean that. So in which way agencies use and absorb this information, and who's in charge of understanding this data? Because if today you send me to a place to buy something and today I'm sad, and then you make a survey and I give you this data, you're fucked up, completely fucked up, because then you did this in a day that I'm sad, and it seems that your number says that I'm depressed, which is not right. So in which way can you set a trend through a number when we are talking about not only about feelings and emotions and deep understanding of the human beings? So would it be important to understand? I mean, I'm sure that probably sometimes you start trying new things. Yeah, that was what it was done. I've been working in Mexico for 20 years, and when Water Thompson was here, it was a day. This planning process, then we have focus group, and then you reach into a creative proposal, and then 1 year nobody will see results. What we have today are daily dashboards with 13 of our most important customers having a camera at the store, and the other thing that we have is being able of making daily surveys, so you know the people that went to the store, this awareness of the brand. What else do you want? I mean, for me, it was the fact that this is a dream of data. So we don't steal the customer's data. In the past, it was just an idea. Right now, it's not working. We'll see later on. We change certain things. But the commitment is not to make the data overtaking. The commitment is that we're not looking at. And right now, we don't have that transparency. Customer has the dashboard at their phones, and so we are looking at the results. Yeah, it doesn't mean that is tasteful. So the number of 1 million people, for example, if I go and see a customer and I tell them, well, the data is saying this, and that's the same thing with the broadcasters, that they don't know the consumer, they don't know the fundamental basis of connecting. Any dashboard is going to explain why a fly is eating crap. So a creative needs to smell things. They really need to understand things. And even you have social listening, that you could be connected, plugged in. That's why it's not exactly using my notebook at my office. And you have to expose yourself, not to a focus group that comes once every 4 years, but then start socializing. Data is not going to produce insight, only humans. And then we have to create hypotheses of the things that we are looking for. Probably we may having certain things of the discovery, saying, well, that's good, but what's the purpose of this? So you have to have a hypothesis of what you really want to know.
Exactly. And I think that we can have a very strong element for creativity, but it's only the awareness of the agency. Of course, it's always very fun. It's dynamic planning, and that's what we're seeing. We're modifying all the time. We need to take away things that we don't need from the customers because that's irrelevant. We cannot listen without the microphone, and apology. Yeah, I say I'm happy today, I'm tired today, and then I'm going to be angry today. So we have a lot of stimuli. What happened 2 months ago in Facebook, it's not going to happen today. And the same thing with the social networks. It's not just a constant learning of the audience and the consumer. What I want to understand is the way where we can use our budget without the fear of making a mistake. For example, I work for Procter and Gamble, and I say I'm going to risk an important amount of money. Are you ready to lose the money or not? Because otherwise, there are only one touchdowns, but they don't want to have fun in the middle. No, so you don't lose money. You lose knowledge, and there are two things that you have when you invest. You have a specific approach, and then you have data. You have to invest correctly so that you learn. And these are very easy to use. We have cluster groups. You design it, you col- col- use it. If tomorrow the information is relevant, you take it away and use something else that are called clustering tools to see the trending topics, to have more assets. So we have time for one more question. Last question at the end of the room. Shawn was saying something that is very important for me. It's the customers that you have. They are asking for 20, 30 more times the content that you were offering 10 years ago. So how are you responding as an agency to that challenge? Everything is about production. You're talking about production, right? We have a production unit of content that has the capability to generate first a strategy for a platform. First, we need to understand how the brand needs to structure its content and then produce it. We were saying that it's constantly changing. The process and the organization of the agency is changing in a lot of senses. And the people that we hire today, different from what we had a few years ago. Well, we have data scientists and we have content producers, which we used in an agency a few years ago. So we also have some things because of the speed that you needed. So you needed to have in-house. And we have a unit that has these type of platforms which has a capability to create contents. We didn't have outside partners, of course. There's a lot of things that we cannot do. But this is going to allow us to have the capability and the speed to have the right amount of content to the customer. Yes, we are in the era where one size does not fit all. We need to adapt and be flexible regarding the content that you need. And there are several entities that do that. We are out of time. Congratulations to my partners, Matthew Schachner, Lance Billesdorf, Doug Grau. They've done an amazing work. It's very daring and very amazing to take this event to Mexico. The advertising week is going to turn Mexico as the regional capital of advertising, media, and creativity and technology. So I think it's a very good event. Thanks for supporting the event, and congratulations to our panelists.